Hello folks, welcome to the good old Min-Max Munchkin rambling video. I am a little bit more tired and scatterbrained than I usually am, so this video is probably gonna contain even more ramblings than my old videos usually have, but you know, if you like listening to me talking about all sorts of nonsense and just going on all sorts of digressions, this is the video for you, especially if you are new to the game and want to learn some basics. I kind of go over them over and over again, so definitely keep watching. Anyway, yeah, for the past couple of days I've been releasing videos about the Beastress. There's been a teaser, there's been like a short build overview. If you still need to know more information, this is the one for you, so definitely keep watching. I'm already rambling, I already said this thing twice, so let's go. Let's just go. Anyway, yeah, so the Beastress, the key features, it's all about like hit points and all of that stuff. So I didn't go higher than level 7 for this build because I don't really think this is the build that's supposed to be played at higher levels. This is really like the best at lower levels. Up to like level 6, 7, that's as much as I would go. So this is something that you can expect at that level, like at level 7. This can go even up higher if you use your shifting feature. I'm gonna talk about it real soon, but basically 18 or 19 AC, depending on whether you're using your racial trait. You have all these, you know, shifting, rages, second wind, maneuvers, a lot of hit points, basically double that if you're raging and the DM is attacking you with physical attacks, bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing, and all of that jazz. It's kind of cool. Not the most damaging build, not the most, like, damage spongy build in that regard, but it's definitely got several toys in his arsenal to, well, I mean, be competent at what it does. The first, obviously, the racial choice of choice. Shifter, so it gives us the con +2 race bonus. It's from the beast hide. Shifting plus shifting features, so all shifters get the bonus action temporary hit points, but the beast hide gets a little bit more, plus 1 more armor, as I said. Rage, obviously, kind of what every barbarian does. Form of the beast, this is specific for the beast barbarian. He gets these natural weapons that he can use, or actually in this case she. An armor defense standard for all barbarians. ASI and durable feet at level 4, extra attack at level 5, bestial sword at level 6. All of this results in a very high hit points and AC character. Bigger AC and more hit points than most barbarians, specifically because this is a shifter. AC comes from the point buy, you know, just having higher stats. Yeah, flexible self-regenerative capabilities, particularly from the Beast Barbarian bite attack. Gear independent, the only thing you really need for this build to work, as advertised, is a shield. You don't need armor because you have an armor defense, right? So that's gonna help you with armor class. I mean, you need clothes. I mean, I guess if it gets cold or hot, well, technically cold, but that's pretty much it. Like, you don't really need much. You don't need armor, you don't need magic items or anything. You are pretty self-sufficient on your own. And part of the reason why I think this is a lower level build is because the fact you're gear independent. Once the gear starts popping in, you're kind of stuck, you know. If you want to use your class features, in this case like your bite attack, claws or whatever, in your bestial soul, like the first time your party starts getting magic weapons, all of this stuff gets kind of redundant. So in that regard, I really think this is like for tier 1 and lower tier 2 campaigns. And a very flavorful thematic race and class combination with a strong mechanical and roleplay theme. Shifters are all about like beasts, you know, the beast within. The lore is all about the bestial aspect, spiritually, physically, whatever. They even like say somewhere in here that like it's ancestor, something about lycanthropes. Let me just yeah, so lycanthropes, blah blah blah, humans and lycanthropes descendants. And then if you check the Unearthed Arcana for the Path of the Beast, it even says one of your parents is a lycanthrope as one potential origin of the beast within you. So, like, this is thematically and mechanically as close as you can make it perfect. And the only thing that's probably gonna make this more perfect is if this particular Barbarian gets published officially and some of the issues that I see with this Unearthed Arcana subclass get fixed. In that case, this type of character is probably gonna be even better. But yeah, let's actually delve a little bit deeper into these particular like mechanical aspects of the build. First, you have the Shifter, pretty standard age for a humanoid, alignment, whatever, like it can be anything pretty much. But yeah, sure, like they tend towards chaotic alignments, which makes sense. I mean, you're a beast, you should be at least non-lawful, right? Size standard, speed standard, dark vision is really good. They get one language, which is kind of, you know, like most races get two, but in this case, like they're like beasts. They live in these half-savage communities, like primitive communities, or at least that's the sense that I get about them. Maybe I don't know much about the Eberron lore, but that's at least what I gather from this. And certainly knowing only one language would point towards that fact even more. But I'm rambling. Let's go back to the thing. Yeah, so athletic skill, that's kind of cool from the beast hide. Constitution +2 and strength +1 is perfect for a barbarian. The thing that we are most interested in, aside from all these things, is shifting feature and the shifting trait, right? So these two traits together, all sub-races of Shifter get their shifting features, but Beast High specifically, on top of having very, very good scores for a barbarian, every barbarian needs Constitution and Strength, has 1d6 additional temporary hit points on top of the ones that you get from your ordinary shifting trait, which is con modifier plus level, which is good. I mean, as you keep leveling up, you get more and more, but now you get to roll additional die, and whatever you roll gets added on top of that. And also, +1 AC doesn't seem like much, but more often than not, like I see situations where, especially like lately in the games that I've been DMing, I give my players armor, like some magical armor and stuff, like so their AC grows by 1 or 2. And then I keep attacking them, and at some point I roll a number that would hit them if they don't actually wear that magic item. So in this particular case, +1 bonus to AC is actually relevant, because it actually might happen that your DM rolls exactly the amount needed, and in this case it's 17 to begin with, and then when you shift, it actually becomes 18, so that 17 to hit actually doesn't hit. That's what happens in the game, and I think this is actually quite relevant, especially at lower levels when all of the extra hit points and bonus to armor class and all of the other stuff makes it first and foremost harder for you to get hit, and even if you do get hit while raging, you will basically be taking less than half the damage because of the odd number calculations, but more on that later. Anyway, once per short rest, obviously, you can get his back once every hour. Like, if you take an hour, you get it back. It's good, 12 to 17 temporary hit points on average. This is assuming a level 7 character, which I kind of capped this character at. You can go higher, as I said in my previous video, which, by the way, is probably gonna get linked somewhere at the top. If I forget to do it and you're still listening, let me know in the comments down below that I'm forgetful, scatterbrained, mouth breather, so I will fix that error. Anyway, that's it about shifters. The idea is to get temporary hit points and pair this with rage. But in terms of point buy, before we delve into the barbarian and before we go a little bit about background, obviously, I mean, you would be kind of maxing out your constitution and strength, dumping as many points into it as possible based on the point buy rules, so that's 15. That will leave you with 16 in strength and 17 in constitution. That also means that odd number does seem like it's a waste, but yeah, I mean, it does mean that you will be taking a feat for it. More on that later. I already kind of mentioned it. It's a durable feat, so yeah, but I'm gonna talk about it soon. 14 in dexterity is just to have that +2 to AC. That's primarily, like, the primary concern is the armor class, but to a lesser extent, it's also gonna help your other features, but more on that later as well. Dump your intelligence and charisma. You don't need those, especially at lower levels. You're like, most barbarians don't really have anything to do with with mental ability scores. I would put the 2 remaining point by points into the wisdom, because you will have some skill proficiencies that go off of wisdom, primarily the perception. So yeah, I would definitely put at least 10, you know, even it out, make it a 0, so that at least you don't get a -1 on that. And that's it for the point buy. Pretty standard for a barbarian, I think, if you just want to optimize, like maximize your physical stats and dump your mental ones. This is kind of like how you do it. So that's it about that. Background, Flan Insurgent. Now this is adventure specific. It's like Adventures League Curse of Strahd specific background. I don't know exactly what it is, because I didn't actually check this in the official book, but something like this would definitely fit the theme of this character, at least in my opinion. You get the good proficiencies. The stealth goes off of your dexterity, which is +2. Survival does go off of your wisdom, which is the reason why we put a 10 in wisdom, you know, so that your skill proficiency is not lacking. You get any artisan tool tool of your choice. In my particular opinion, I think that you should take woodcarver tools, because they kind of make the most sense. And if you think about it just from the mechanical standpoint, woodcarver's tools, provided that your DM actually uses Xanatar's Guide specific like rules and stuff, does allow you to make arrows. And yeah, I mean, this will allow you to maybe preserve a little bit of a gold. And also, if you find yourself or your allies find themselves without arrows, you can always craft them up as part of a short rest. And short rest is going to be something that you're going to be relying on. So, you know, get as many stuff as you can in that 1 hour. You know, get as many stuff as you can, get them done. Land vehicles, kind of whatever. I mean, sure, why not? But starting equipment 2, you know, whatever. This can be useful. Like if your creative healer's kit is cool, but at the same time it's a medicine check, so it's like a +0, not as useful to you. Common clothes, pretty standard. 5 gold and a pouch. The thing that I'm kind of more interested in here is the origin and the feature. So the hunter origin and the guerrilla feature kind of, in my opinion, again fit the theme of the physical specimen, with a combination of raw talents and a basic skill set to survive and thrive in the wilderness even before the calamity struck. So Beastress has spent years constantly fighting against whoever or whatever oppresses hers and the existence of her species communities. Now, depending on the campaign, I would communicate with your DM to find a spot in his or her world and the story that makes sense for this character's distinct blend of conventional martial training that I imagine a hunter would get, and pure untamed savagery stemming from primal spirits and other bestial powers manifesting through it. First and foremost, the shifter, like, you know, you get your shifting feature, so that's kind of like racial. But also, once you go into the beast, especially later on at higher levels, you kind of get that untamed savagery, which gets fully manifested through your character. And yeah, like, I can't even believe this is me who wrote this. Like, this is some cool stuff. Yeah, like, this is really me who wrote this. Cool. Yeah, shit, I can write. Anyway, yeah, that sounded way too cocky, and now you probably hate me. You think I'm full of myself. I'm really not. I'm just kind of like making fun of myself, if you can't tell. I don't know, like, people sometimes don't get my humor. It's very weird, and not many people get it. I'm not special, but whatever. Yeah, I'm rambling, sorry. I said it at the beginning of the video. I apologize already. So what do you want from me? Anyway, let's continue. So, that's it for the background. Not really much else other than that. As always, you can do whatever you want, but this is something that I would take, and skill proficiencies are kind of relevant. You know, you do benefit from both of these during the most conventional campaigns and sessions. So yeah, I think this is kind of like the nice blend of backstory, background, and skills. In terms of feats, durable makes really good sense, because first, it keeps your hit points topped up with this thing over there at all times, and in case you're going through the bone crunching meat grinder session campaign, this feat will definitely ensure you don't waste your hit dice with low rolls. And also, it goes back to that constitution score in the point buy that I talked about before. So it was 17, with +1 in Constitution. At level 4 it becomes 18, and instead of +3 modifier you get a +4 modifier. So your hit points go up, your temporary hit points go up, your healing goes up, I'm gonna talk about it soon. Everything goes up with Constitution. Your armor class goes up by 1, so yeah, like just +1 to Constitution improves so many things on this particular character, and I really think that like if you're gonna take this feat ever, this is the character to take it with. Finally, let's talk a little bit about Barbarian. Now, obviously you get your starting shit. Sorry for my bad vocabulary. Yeah, I try not to swear and say S and F, but I sometimes drop those things, so apologies if there's kids listening to this. It's just general audience to me, so yeah, I mean, whatever. Tell your parents that I'm a foul mother idiot, so maybe they will tell you not to watch me ever again, and then come and watch me anyway. That's my master devil's plan. Anyway, yeah. So, 1d12 hit dice. Barbarian gets the best hit dice, obviously. Starting proficiency is all standard. I would take Perception. That's, like, easily the best, like, the most important skill in the game. So take it, it goes off of your Wisdom. Also, Animal Hand, I mean, you get Athletics anyway from Shifter. You gain Survival from Background. Intimidation is Charisma, Nature is Intelligence. So what other skill to take other than Animal Handling? Since you're an animal yourself, you're like a beast, right? So it never makes thematic sense. So in that regard, definitely, like, just put everything where it should be, right? That's at least how I would do it. Definitely pick Perception, and in my opinion, Animal Handling is the second best choice after that. Starting equipment, I would go with Greatsword because it says any martial melee weapon. Greatsword is typically better than Great Axe in terms of overall damage. Great Axe is more swingy, no pun intended, as in like you can roll 12, but you can also roll a 1. With a 2d6 weapon like Greatsword, you tend to roll more on the average. Like, the oscillations are gonna be less prevalent. Like, one dice is gonna roll 6, another one is gonna roll 1. That's still a 7. But there is a tendency of always rolling closer to the average, and some people think that Great Axe is better because, like, once you really roll that 12 on the Great Axe, which you have a better chance of doing with the Great Axe than with, like, you have a better odds of rolling max damage with one die instead of 2 dice. That's kind of like how it goes with statistics and probabilities. But yeah, I would still pick Greatsword because it's overall a bit more damage statistically, and personally I found that whenever I roll 2d6 instead of 1d12, I usually deal more damage. Short bow is actually a simple weapon, and with 14 in dexterity, and woodcarver tool proficiency, which you get from your background, you don't really even need to buy arrows. You just pick short bow, you get 0 arrows, that's true, but during your first short rest you can make 5 arrows, provided again that your DM allows you to use woodcarver's tool in that regard, and it kind of makes sense, obviously. So that's at least what I would do right now. Yeah, sure, you can take 2 hand axes, the thing that most barbarians do, but in my personal opinion, with 14 in dexterity, that's decent enough for you to be able to hit stuff at range if you really cannot get into melee. That happens, and even in that regard, like 2 hand axes, what do you do after you chuck them out? Like, what do you do after you throw 2 hand axes? That's always been the thing that bugged me. You pick 2 hand axes, you throw them in the first 2 rounds of combat, or maybe even the first round if you manage to do it somehow. And then you're out of hand axes, so you still have to get in melee. What if you can't get into melee? That's why I really think that picking a short bow, in this case, over 2 hand axes, is overall better choice if you really have to fight at range. Explorer spec, pretty standard. 4 javelins, yeah, sure, so you already get 4 throwable weapons, you don't really need 2 more of them. So pick a, what's the name? Pick a short bow, yeah, so that's it. Buy a shield as soon as you earn enough gold for it. You can even sell some of your starting equipment if your DM allows it, because, like, you don't really need, I don't even know what stuff is in Explorer spec. You don't need rations and stuff. You can sell some of that stuff, so yeah, I mean, sell some of the stuff, grab a shield as soon as possible, because yeah, you're not gonna be swinging. I mean, sure. So, okay, greatsword, you can't use a greatsword with a shield. But the thing that I'm pointing to here is that if you, especially after you hit level 3, which I'm gonna talk about real soon, you really will want to use a shield. So even if you don't take a greatsword, like even if you do take a greatsword, which means that you can't use a shield, you will still want to have a shield, right? And honestly, if you really want to carry a shield from level 1, you can just not take a great weapon. You can take like a long sword and it's gonna deal 1d8 damage instead of 2d6. Yeah, sure, that on average is gonna deal less damage, but whatever, like it's just... Yeah, actually, let me change this. Let's say that you, for whatever reason, you know, if you wanna hire AC because you carry a shield in combat. There we go. Yeah, that maybe even makes more sense. Yeah, I don't... Whatever. Like, you can do anything. Probably this is even a better choice if you wanna be more defensive. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So, finally we are on to features. Rage. The beginning and sometimes the end of most barbarians out there. Pretty much every barbarian. Synergy with the shifting trait, as I pointed out before, often results in more than double the effective hit points due to rounding down when halving the damage rolls. So, long story short, you have the resistance to bludgeoning. You have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, period. So, on lower levels, you don't really take fire damage that often. You don't really take cold damage. Yeah, you can take poison damage from time to time. But in my experience, and I guess in experience of most people playing on lower level sessions or campaigns, most of the damage is one of these 3 types, which I like to just call physical damage, because it is physical damage. It comes from physical sources, weapons, claws, whatever, bites. So whenever you take this damage, you take half of it, and let's say you take 9 damage, and then you take half of that 9. Well, half of the 9 is 4.5, but you round it down, so it's actually 4. So if you think about it, like you take 9 damage, and then you take 7 damage, and then you take, let's say, 3 damage, that's like 4, 3, 1. Right, so instead of, like, you more than half the damage. Like, you halve the damage and then you cancel out additional 3 points of damage on top of that, due to how the calculations work. So this actually stacks up on lower levels, and it often happens that several times in a row you get hit by odd number damage. By the damage of odd numbers. Let's say like 3, 5, 7, and then you take like 1, 2 and 3 damage instead of like... So that's a lot of damage that you're cancelling out with this. So now you combine it, going back to the shifter, with your shifting, which gives you temporary hit points, and your beast hide, which gives you additional temporary hit points on top of your +1 bonus to armor class. So now you're looking into effectively, as I said in my previous video, like 50 hit points at some point. 50 hit points at level 1. Effectively, if all damage you're taking is physical, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. That's actually a lot of damage. That's actually a lot of effective hit points at level 1. And that's pretty much what you do at level 1. You are a hit point machine, right? On top of that, you sometimes probably won't even take damage, because 10 plus dexterity plus constitution immediately gives you 5, so 15. And then if you stack a shield on top of that, that's 17. And then once you turn on your shifting beast hide feature, your AC at level 1 can easily be 18. Which for any character, regardless of whatever class you're playing, 18 armor class at level 1 is really, really good. Especially for barbarians who usually have like, I don't know, like from 13 to 16 armor class. Depending on whether they are carrying a shield, like maybe 17. But for you, it actually can go higher than that. So it's pretty crazy. Obviously, after you hit level 4, take your durable feat, which increases your constitution modifier. Your armor class immediately becomes 1 point higher, so while shifting it's actually 19. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Danger sense at level, what is this? I don't even know my barbarians. Yeah, reckless attack and danger sense Both features are really good on you. Reckless attack specifically because it's on-demand advantage, slightly better on you because of your higher armor class. Because the drawback, you know, every time you give yourself advantage, all the enemies have advantage against you, is slightly less dangerous for you because of the fact you have like 17, 18, 19 armor class, depending on your level. Still be careful when and how you use it. Danger sense, on the other hand, is good just because you have +2 to dexterity, because you have 14 in dexterity. So barbarians that tend to ignore dexterity, they generally have like less use from this feature, just statistically, like having less odds. But for you it's gonna be a bit better. At level 3, finally, you get your form of the beast. Now, long story short, bite mechanically and thematically is obviously the best choice, because you get to heal yourself effectively whenever you hit the target at least once a turn. And sooner or later your shifter temporary hit points are gonna be gone, or maybe you can't even use your shifting trait because it's only 1 time per short rest. However, you know, every time that happens and you hit the enemy, you heal yourself for your constitution modifier, and then just 1 level more into the class, as I said, you take your durable feat, which bumps your constitution modifier from +3 to +4. So now every time you bite the enemy, you have like +4 hit points, and if the enemy is doing physical damage to you, bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing, that's effectively like 8 hit points, maybe 9, maybe even 10. Depending on the, you know, odd number calculations. So this is really kind of nuts if you think about it. You can really have like a lot of extra effective hit points on top of already crazy hit points that you have. Claws are more damaging, obviously, because you get more attacks, and the difference between 1d6 and 1d8 is not like too, it's almost irrelevant. So 1 more attack, you would be thinking, yeah, sure, that's kind of more damage, and you definitely can do that. You really don't have to use bite, even though I think if I ever play this character, the only attack that I would be using is a bite. But until your rage ends, like whenever you enter rage, you can choose one of these 3, so you don't really have to use bite all the time. If you want to use claws and deal more damage, you can do that. However, one thing that I kind of assume is not something, this is the reason why Unearthed Arcana is oftentimes not really polished, right? So if you think about it, claws, it kind of assumes that you're using both hands. But what if one of your hands holds a shield? Does this mean, well, the way it's written, it says that you get like 1 additional attack. Does this mean that that additional attack is done with your other hand? I don't know, it's not specifically stated. My interpretation of this particular attack option is that you have to have your both hands free in order to use it. It's not specifically stated, but it kind of common sense, and in my opinion the design intent behind this is that you have to have both of your hands free. I don't know whether that's the case. This is Unearthed Arcana, it's playtest material. Whatever, talk to your DM, ask your DM what he or she thinks about it and what the interaction should be between the shield and claws in his or her opinion. I don't know, in my own opinion I think you can't use claws with a shield, but that's just mine. I'm not any authority on this. This is clearly like undefined territory. This is kind of like it's up to a DM to decide. And finally, tail. If you can't reach your enemy, just grab a short bow and shoot it. You have enough dexterity to not be entirely useless at range. Sure, like with tail, you can still deal more damage with rage and everything, but it's not really that much more damage than claws or bite to go for it. And the reach only matters in the first round in case you don't have enough movement speed to get into melee. At that point, in most cases, you're better off just picking up a javelin or a short bow and just, you know, fighting at range for that round. Now, one ability score increase that you get at level 4, which is obviously something that all barbarians get, is something that you're gonna be using for taking feats. Grab that juicy durable feat. pretty much self-explanatory there. Extra attack, obviously double your opportunity to heal yourself via the bite attack. And also damage the enemy in the process, damage him or her more, or it, whatever. Fast movement, plus 10 move speed, always relevant. I mean, it's pretty good. And that's pretty much it for that. Bestial Sword at level 6. Pretty good feature. I'd say probably like the best one overall, even though the hit points interactions between the bite and the shifting and the rage are pretty nuts. This is something that is gonna make you almost completely gear independent, because you don't have to rely on your DM giving you magic items, magic weapons specifically to ignore the immunities and resistances to non-magical attacks and damage. You pretty much get this by the fact that you are a level 6 barbarian in this particular subclass. Now the extra mobility that you get, that's pretty good. The extra mobility options, because every time you're like dealing with, I don't know, water terrain or terrain where you have to climb a lot or something, I don't know, swim, who knows, maybe you have to jump over crevices or whatever, you get to do that because, well, you're just a beast, right? So that's pretty much it. Now for level 7 I would go into fighter, and not any fighter, but the sort of like an unearthed arcana fighter. Now every fighter gets a second wind feature, obviously. For some reason I don't have this open. Yeah, like the specific thing about the unearthed arcana, since we are already using it, why not use the other one, which has been released recently. I make videos about these unearthed arcana releases, so there's a playlist on my page somewhere on the home page, so go check it out if you're interested in more details. But for now, this is the thing that we need. Fighting style options, superior technique is going to give you one maneuver, and the maneuver that I'm most interested in is the parry, because I think this is the something that kind of makes the most mechanical and to lesser extent thematical sense in this case, because it gives you a reaction option that preserves your hit points, right? Every time you kind of heal yourself, you give your, like, you negate the damage or whatever. It basically doubles the amount of hit points that you already have, because every time, let's say, you heal yourself for 4 via the bite attack, it can easily become 8 or 10 every time you take the physical damage, because you halve the damage that you take. So in order for somebody to take off that 4 damage that you heal yourself, he or she or it has to deal at least 8 damage to you, right? So that's like double the amount. And in this particular case, if you reduce the damage by, let's say, I don't know, your dexterity is modifier is +2, and then you use your reaction and you roll like 6 or like 3 or whatever, that's like 5 damage, but that's for you basically like 10, maybe even 12, who knows, depending on how much damage you take. So at level 7 you can be pretty certain that if the physical damage you're taking, it's probably gonna be 10 or more. So yeah, I mean, you negate 5 of those damages, it's gonna take 10 more damage to damage you for that 5 damage that you just negated. So it's pretty nuts. It kind of like stacks with rage, and I think it's pretty good in that regard. But obviously you can take anything else. This is just one thing that you can take. I mean, disarming attack is good if you're dealing with spellcasters or any monster that has weapons or spellcasting foci, whatever. Trip attack is always good, especially if you have a party full of melee characters. I wouldn't go for precision, but sure, if you want to maximize your odds of hitting a target once per short rest, yeah, whatever. There's always options, and the thing that gives you these options is maneuver versatility, which is another unearthed arcana feature in these class features. It pretty much gives you, like, every time you long rest, so every time you long rest, you get to choose your superior technique maneuver. And as I said, parry, repose, disarming, all of these are good depending on the circumstances and scenarios you're dealing with. If you have some information in advance, you can change your maneuvers. Now, the last thing that we obviously are interested in is second wind. It's a bonus action, let's call it healing, because that's kind of like the most intuitive way to describe things. you know, regaining hit points, it's not really health. Hit points represent all sorts of things. Luck, durability, way to, like, just... Sometimes a hit is just you avoiding the danger nearly, but not getting hit, like, in a literal sense. But anyway, whatever. You roll 1d10 plus 1 because you take 1 level in fighter. So sometimes you will roll 11, sometimes you will roll 2. Whatever happens, happens. It's additional hit points that you get to heal yourself. So you have parry, which can be like, I don't know, 9. It can be from like 8 to... From 3 to 8. You have your second wind, which can be from 2 to 11. You have your bite attack from the what's the name? The Beast Barbarian. That's like additional 4 hit points every time you land one of those bite attacks, and you have 2 of those because of the extra attack. So it's once per turn, but whatever, you have like 2 chances. So like that can be a lot of additional hit points that you get to heal yourself during a combat. And again, almost all of this is like short rest. Like rages, sure, rage is a long rest feature, but all of these other ones are short rest, especially like shifting and all of the other stuff. So you are going to be very, very capable of dealing with a prolonged adventuring day, even if the DM decides to drop like, I don't know, 6 combat encounters on you, you can still deal with them very, very capably. And I think this is a fun character to play. Again, something like this, again, in the end at level 7 ends up like this. A lot of hit points, additional temporary hit points with the shifting. Decent armor class, up to 19 during shifting, so yeah. Decent skill proficiency, saving throws, pretty standard for a barbarian. Fun thing to play, the only thing that you really need to buy is a shield. And after that, you really don't need much else. You have your rages, you have your shifting, second wind hit points, maneuver, parry hit points. A lot of hit points, a lot of fun things to do. Pretty simple to play. If you ask me, it's a barbarian. It's not really hard to play. And it's very effective at what it does. It takes abuse, gives it back, heals back in exchange. And yeah, so... If you liked what I did so far, and I somehow managed to talk about just 7 levels of a martial class for 37 full minutes, it's probably going to be 40 by the end of this video. Just destroy that like button, recklessly attack it, bite it, smash it, claw it. Just absolutely abuse that little stupid, I'm not going to say the F-bomb, but you know what I mean. I need it for the YouTube algorithm, and if you've been served, please give a little bit back. And if you obviously subscribe, hit the bell button, all of the other jazz, you know the YouTube drill. I've probably, I mean, it's probably not your first video, so whatever. You know what you need to do. Anyway, if you need this file for future reference, it's a special perk. I can't even talk anymore. For my patrons, it's a magical secrets tier, so if you want a little bit more convenience and you can't be bothered listening to my annoying Slav accent for another 37 minutes of your life, probably 40, yeah, like consider doing that. It's not mandatory, it's optional. Everything that I talk about is available for free. But if you think that I'm worth the money, worth the time, worth the trouble, worth whatever it is worth for you, the option is always there. The link is gonna be down in the description, so definitely check it out. Or at least chuck a buck my way. Whatever you decide to do is always welcome. Special shout out to all of my patrons: Mike, Matthew, Ewing, Larry Hocken, BardlyManHardlyTrying, Rogor, Kaleron, SuburbanHell, Albert, Kwak, Aidan Harth, Gary Kors, Brad Oldham, C Alcazar, Bredwin, your boy Fox, Sean, Mannozzi Stefano, Adekoya, bittenbi, Jeremy Sirois, ShatteredSilence, Devin Jache, Lunatic Dragon, Zack McNemar, Darth Xín, Ebonhawk, Jeff, Clem, Alex Bell, Yvette Ehler, Howell, CrackedMask. I apologize for butchering probably like half of your names, but I can't do it better than that, so yeah, that's me being Slav. Anyway, thank you for your continued support, all new and old patrons. You give me plenty of reasons to continue just rambling in these videos. You will love it for some reason, so I'm just gonna keep doing it because, hey, at least somebody is watching. And yeah, with all of that said, MinMax Munchkin out, and talk to you soon.